Hey everybody, we decided to perform a head-to-head test on 4 cordless concrete cutters, also known as power cutters, cut-off saws, masonry saw. And we did that to determine which one was the best saw and if these saws could even compete with gas cut-off saws. Now, to give clarity to our testing, we included the Husqvarna K770 as a comparison standard. Husqvarna has been making cut-off saws since 1958, and we chose the K770 because it's powerful and an all-around concrete cutter with great features and probably one of the best saws on the market, in our opinion. All right, so the 4 manufacturers sent us their cutter and blade to match the cutter. I want to note that the Hilti in this test is actually a 12-inch saw, and we allowed it to participate because it has a feature called outcut, which allows it to cut at similar depths as those other 3 14-inch saws. Now, to understand what outcut is, the arm of the saw narrows to a smaller point compared to other saws, and it uses a smaller diameter flange set. Okay, if you're looking for more information on these saws, additional details, specs, the nitty-gritty, you need to go to toolboxbuzz.com and read the article. The article always has more information. Let's talk about testing criteria. Our team scored the cordless cutter saws on 8 criteria, and we ranked them independently. And the overall best cutoff saw was determined using combined test results. We include, but do not rank watt hours per cut or best value categories, but we list them here because we think they're important for informational purposes. And we did not include decibel testing this time because all of the saws are well over OSHA rating for hearing protection. So just put your muffs on. Okay. The scoring criteria. So we looked at concrete cutting. We did a concrete cutting test, measured most lineal foot in concrete with embedded rebar, average speeds taken there. We looked at rebar cutting, fastest cutter of 5 ganged number 4 rebar for average speed. We took a look at watt hour per cut, and we include this for your reference, like I mentioned. We took a look at depth of cut, and we ranked them for their cutting capacity. We also looked at charging time. Ranked the time it took to charge depleted batteries. Ergonomics, we always look at ergonomics. It's an important to users, an important category when you're purchasing a tool for any power tool. And obviously features we looked at. And we discussed, say, standout features, team favorites, and we ranked several of them. We looked at weight. Size matters, we always say that, and weight can be cumbersome. So we measured the dimensions and the weight of each concrete cutter and tested, and we scored them accordingly. Best value we looked at, didn't rank it, and price. And the kit price at the time of publishing. And we include price this time. To test these cutters, we poured these blocks, these 3,500 PSI concrete blocks. They were 12 by 24 by 4.5 deep. And we made those blocks purposely deep enough for all the cutters to be able to cut through with about, I don't know, 1/8 to 1/4 inch to allow for blade wear. Each concrete block had 2 embedded number 4 rebar running along its full length. So test number 1 was, we looked at it was a performance test, and it was concrete cutting with embedded rebar, and we looked at, lineal feet, and we took speeds as well. And each concrete cutter was outfitted with a fresh battery and a manufacturer-specific blade. I want to say all the manufacturers, they insisted that we use their branded blades on their saws, claiming their blades were the best for their saw and optimized for the saw, yada, yada, yada. So we did. Runtime on a cordless cutoff saw, it's important. And discussing how the battery and gas saws operate differently, it's important to us. So the number 1 question we're asked is, how do these saws compare to a gas cutter? So for us to even address this question, we included the Husqvarna K770 as a comparison. So that's how it got into the test. So our runtime test procedure. Without a testing rig, we usually like to build a rig to eliminate variables. It's hard to have a controlled test. Cutting technique is important, and we recognized that we needed to let the tool do the work and not bog it down, which is why we designed our tests with the following criteria. All the battery saws had 2 sets of fresh batteries ready to go and new manufacturer blades. The Husqvarna K70 had a full tank right to the top of fresh gas and a Milwaukee diamond blade, same as the Milwaukee saw head. 4 operators were assigned to each saw. We used those concrete blocks I just talked about. Each test was timed and recorded. Water was used on every cut, And each operator made 3 cuts and swapped out. We rotated through those 4 operators. We did that to prevent fatigue. Fatigued users, they're gonna lean on the saw, you're gonna get sloppy. So we did that. Every cutter, every operator employed a stepped cutting method. And every operator let the tool do the cutting and listen to the motor for feedback or indicator lights. Operators applied pressure when the tool would allow it. And if the motor seemed like it was bogging down, they let up on the pressure. The test ended when the battery saw died and when the K770 ran out of gas. The total slices, including partial cuts, were recorded for a total lineal foot measurement. I want to note that the Husqvarna K770 saw has a fuel tank capacity of 0.95 quarts, so just keep that in mind. Okay, quick comment on step cutting, in case you wonder what I meant by we did step cutting. It's known as incremental cutting. It's just making incremental cuts with the saw back and forth until you get that overall cut is reached. Step cutting increases efficiency, blade life, and results in cleaner, straighter cuts. So that's why we did it. It's best practice. And another note on runtime testing. With any cutoff saw, you will experience variable results based on the material you're cutting, your cutting style, operator experience, and the blade used. Ambient temperatures will also affect runtime. The more demand you put on your motor, if you push down too hard, for example, leaning on the saw too much, the more amps it will pull from the motor, and that'll pull from the power output. The same effect can happen on a gas saw, by the way, folks, except runtime is not usually considered, right? Given the quicker refueling versus recharging times. All right, so the runtime testing winner was Husqvarna. In all cases, it is necessary to supply 2 sets of batteries for these saws to compete with a single tank of gas. So you need to keep that in mind. Manufacturers recognize this too, and most of these tools and most of the manufacturers, they're starting to sell these saws as a kit with 2 sets of batteries. The Husqvarna concrete cutter was able to cut 36 cuts. That's 36 lineal feet of concrete, compared to the K70, which only cut 30 cuts, 30 lineal feet on that tank of gas. Second place was the Hilti cutoff saw, 29 cuts, 29 lineal feet, followed by Makita with 24 cuts, lineal feet, Milwaukee with 23.5 cuts, lineal feet. One interesting fact was that the average speed to complete these cuts. So the gas K70, they completed 30 cuts with an average speed of 35.5 seconds per cut. Milwaukee, which brought up the rear in the least amount of cut, lineal feet cut, was powerful enough to cut the concrete blocks faster than the gas saw, 34.9 seconds. Husqvarna had an average of 40.7, and both Hilti and Makita were 45 seconds. I do need to note that some of the photos and video that you're going to see in the video show the K1 Pace, the battery saw, with a smaller battery. The saw was photographed and tested with a smaller battery, and later in the week we received a larger battery and we tested it again. The stats that we show in our charts are for the larger battery. All right, watt hours per cut. While many sectors of the power tool industry have transitioned to battery power and cut the cord, there remain some specific tools like gas cutoff saws where there's no cord to cut. For cordless cutoff saws to compete with a gas saw, they need to have similar cutting power, but also carry enough potential energy on board to get the job done. We all agree on this. With all the tools running at different voltages, the quickest way to get a snapshot at how big the gas tank is on the tool is to look at how many watt hours the batteries have on board. So we ran our endurance test with 1 battery swap, so watt hours are doubled in this chart. So just pay attention to that. By calculating watt hours per cut, we get a good idea of how efficient a tool is in transforming that battery potential capacity into concrete cutting. Husqvarna had the largest battery in the group, and it achieved the top rank of cuts, but it also was the second most efficient with its gas tank. The Hilti had the least amount of watt hours, but cut the second most amount of cuts, and was a standout with most efficient, 35.17 watt hour cuts. Makita and Milwaukee have the same watt hours on board and cut almost identical in concrete. The Makita edged out a half cut over the Milwaukee, which translates to a lower watt hour cut, a value of 48. An interesting observation when comparing the efficiency ranking of a tool is to compare them to the following speed and power rankings that we did. It's clear there's always design trade-offs between power and efficiency, and these tools are no exception. So our power testing, we looked at rebar, and we cut rebar, average speed. Each cordless cut-off saw was outfitted, fresh battery, and all of them got the same brand-specific abrasive cutting disc. So our procedure, same operator, one operator, and the same timer, made 3 cuts in the rebar. 5 pieces of number 4 rebar, ganged up. Each cut was timed separately. The operator pushed as hard as the saw would allow. The 3 cuts were averaged and scored. Now the fastest cutting for rebar winner was Milwaukee. The Milwaukee was able to cut through 5 number 4 rebar in 7.78 seconds. Second place was Makita at 10.3 seconds. Third, Husqvarna at 16.4, and Hilti was 17 seconds. The team felt that this test, with all the saws using identical blade, was a great indicator of available cutting power. All right, let's move on to depth of cut, and the winner of that was Husqvarna. The depth of cut on a saw is important to all users. Husqvarna had the deepest cut with 5 and 5/8. 5 and 5/8 inches. Second place was Makita and Milwaukee, both at 5, followed by the smaller 12-inch Hilti saw with 4 3/4. It just made it through our block. Husqvarna's unique design, where the arbor is offset from the drive band, allowed for this impressive cutting depth. Power cutter ergonomics. Winner of that, Husqvarna. The ergonomics evaluation in this section purely subjective and based on the opinions of our testing crew. After a full day of running performance tests, the team sat down and we ranked each tool on several categories on a score from 1 to 4, 1 being the best. For the ergonomics evaluation, the team evaluated grip, balance, we looked at line of sight, vibration, blade change, battery change. And we took notes all throughout our day. The Husqvarna clearly was the winner. It was a clear winner with a team favorite and a final ergonomic score of 9. It won 3 categories with top score for grip, balance, and line of sight. All good things on a tool. The team did not like that the Husqvarna does not have rollers, it's just flat. But all agreed that it had excellent vibration dampening and excellent balance. It was the smoothest cutting saw, and the streamlined design of it contributed to its excellent line of sight. It was obvious to all of us that Husqvarna has been making these cutters for a long, long time, and the form factor of their battery-powered and gas-powered saws are very similar. Second in ergonomics was a tie between Hilti and Milwaukee. Hilti took tops in vibration score, second in balance. Milwaukee came in second in grip, line of sight, and blade change. The team liked the Hilti grip and balance and felt it really had a nice line of sight, really good line of sight. All of us felt that it was a smooth cutting saw, and it was probably one of the easiest saws to operate. It was the easiest saw to operate. The only criticism was that the batteries tuck under the tool, and they're not easy to insert or remove compared to the other saws in the test. Milwaukee, super powerful cutting saw that you can really lean on. It has a nice grip, excellent line of sight, great balance, good battery removal, but it's a bit bulky and heavy. The Milwaukee saw has no visible decoupling, but has surprisingly low vibration. Milwaukee does isolate the drive system gearbox to minimize vibration, and clearly that helps. Makita scored tops with easiest blade change and a very, very easy peasy battery change. However, its bulky size and weight and kind of uneven balance hindered its ergonomic score overall. The Makita is a super powerful saw, and folks, it is the only saw that you never have to come back off of. You can lean on the saw and cut all day long. It is just powerful. When cutting concrete, the Makita seemed to vibrate a bit though, and actually a lot. However, when with more force applied, the vibrations seemed to lessen considerably. Basically, the users were forced to kind of preload the decoupling spring to prevent kind of a blade chatter, which is what we were finding. This seemed to be a non-issue in rebar cutting and led us to wonder if maybe it was due to the blade more than the saw itself. Unknown. Okay, moving on to features. The winner of features was Hilti, and we considered 8 features on these cutoff saws. We looked at tool activation, water connection, decoupling, vibration, blade, brake, and wheels, handles, multiple placement of them, and indicator lights, as well as the arbor lock and the LED light. Now, Hilti took first place in features with a top score in tool activation, blade break, had the best wheels, and second best water connection. Second place was Makita with a well-designed arbor lock, the best out of all of them. A good, really good water connection, and the only saw to feature an LED light. Think about it, we're cutting these in basements and stuff. It was smart. Third place in features was a tie between Husqvarna and Milwaukee. Husqvarna has an electronic brake called X-Halt, which stops the blade in a fraction of a second if a kickback occurs. The function cannot fully prevent personal injury from a kickback, but it really reduces risk. Husqvarna also has the most informative user interface, great decoupling, and tool activation. It will also time out and turn itself off after 3 minutes of non-use, which we all felt was way too short. Makita had the best auxiliary handle in terms of the amount of usable space in hand positions. It also is the only tool in the test to feature a push-button arbor lock. Everybody else needed 2 tools to do that. Makita is equipped with an active feedback sensing technology, which electronically turns off the motor if if the rotation of the cutting wheel is, say, suddenly forced or stopped or something. It also features extreme protection technology, something they use in a lot of their tools, which is just well engineered to prevent dust and water resistance. Get the water right away from the motor. No one on the team liked the lockout button on the Makita and how it's actuated. This side button safety switch, it's set up for right-hand thumb and is difficult for left-handed users to activate. So instead of a safety switch integrated with the palm, or you naturally press it with your thumb holding it down, users must push this button directly in 90 degrees, offset to the spline of the tool. It's neither intuitive nor comfortable to actuate, and we all fumbled with it. I cursed it every time I had to do it. Milwaukee had a fantastic blade brake. It incorporates a rapid stop technology that prevents damage from kickbacks and unexpected handling behavior. It has a unique trigger activated water valve, which turns on and off the water with the trigger, which initially received super high praise from all of us. I loved the idea, I loved the principle, but later in testing it proved to be a hindrance due to erratic behavior, which likely was due to high water pressure. The Milwaukee manual states that the maximum water pressure for the tool is rated for 60 psi. We measured our water hose we were using and we were at 97 psi on our site. Now Milwaukee needs to address this. As contractors, I don't want to add an additional accessory to reduce pressure reducer. I don't want another thing in my setup, so got to figure that one out, guys. Let's talk about Bluetooth functionality. There's not a whole lot of information here, but Husqvarna, they have built-in connectivity for asset management, allowing you to monitor the location of the tool, runtime, service intervals, and receive wireless updates. Milwaukee uses one key connectivity. That's going to allow you for fleet management, location tracking, and lockout. Nice feature. Let's talk about weight. The winner of that was Husqvarna. Weight can cause fatigue with cutoff saws. We know it also affects runtime. The lightest saw was the Husqvarna. It was 30.8 pounds. The second lightest saw was Hilti, 30.10. Third was the Milwaukee at 33.35, followed by Makita at 34.25. Now I want to note that the Husqvarna K770 gas saw has a weight of 26.12 pounds, much lighter. That's an empty tank, but it's still much lighter. Best cutter charging time. We looked at charging times. Milwaukee and Hilti, they won that. To achieve gas performance, you need 2 sets of batteries. I've already said this. I'm going to say it one more time. The theory in this for the batteries is that you need to have another battery ready to go when one dies, and the charger needs to turn it over quickly. So it's going to reduce downtime and maximize productivity. Will the battery reach a full charge before you need it? Well, the answer to that depends on how much cutting you're doing and how fast, and at one time, how much cutting at one time. The fastest charging time was a tie between Hilti and Milwaukee, and both of them charged at 45 minutes. It's important to note that Hilti runs off of 2 B22-255 batteries, and to achieve this time, you need to charge 2 batteries. So that means you need to have 2 charges. Otherwise, you need to double your time. Husqvarna came in third at 55 minutes, and that's only thanks to its express charge feature on the charger. This feature allows you to push a button, a little lightning bolt, on the front of the charger to activate. However, You don't want to fast charge batteries on a regular basis because it's really hard on the battery cells. If you don't use that, it's going to bump you to a 75-minute charge. But that express charge, it's there when you need it, and a useful feature. So look, we're based in the Northeast here in the US, and our electrical system is based on a 110 volt, right, AC standard. It's important to note for European customers that the Husqvarna can perform slightly faster on a 220 volt AC standard. It's going to give you a 45-minute express charge. Okay, the Makita dual charger, it charges simultaneously both 40 volt, 8 amp hour batteries at the same time, and that can happen in 76 minutes, just 1 minute less. All right, let's move on to best price. Who had the best price? The winner of that was Hilti. These 4 saws are unquestionably pricey tools. For these saws to achieve gas performance, you will need 2 sets of batteries. Said it again. The Milwaukee and Makita saws are offered in kit form, and they include 2 sets of batteries and a charger. Milwaukee comes with 2 batteries and 1 charger, and Makita comes with 4 batteries and 1 dual charger. It requires 2 batteries to function. Our conclusion is that these cutoff saws are all going to require 2 batteries to match the tank of gas. It's doable, guys. It's very doable. For pricing, we include the saw, the 2 sets of batteries, and charger, both for the Husqvarna and the Hilti as well. So we had to piecemeal some of those. The winner of the best price was the Hilti, the DHS 700-22, and they priced it as a kit form at $24.93. Second went to Makita, and they totaled their kit at $26.99. And third price was the Milwaukee, and they sell a kit at $29.99. The most expensive cutoff saw was the Husqvarna, and when added all together, because it was all piecemeal, it was like $39.96. Extremely high price, and it's due to the cost of the batteries. The B750X battery, it's $939 each, and when you combine them total, that's 50% the total cost of the tool. At this cost, users could almost purchase 2 of the competitor saws for the price of the Husky. Okay, who had the best 14-inch cordless cutter saw? The winner of that was Husqvarna. It's important to note that all of these saws, they performed really well and were very close in performance. 2 of the manufacturers, Hilti and Makita, they have huge power tool platforms with their batteries that interchange with them. The other 2, Husqvarna and Milwaukee, they only have a few dozen tools currently on their battery platforms. The Husqvarna scored tops in this test with a score of 21. Very impressive. Hilti came in second at 23, with Milwaukee just 1 point behind. Makita had a score of 28. I want to note that given the number of categories scored for the overall ranking, we decided to double value our performance tests. Both concrete endurance testing and rebar speed scores were multiplied by a factor of 2 in our final chart. We feel the cutting endurance and cutting power of these tools, they should carry the most weight in importance to a potential end user versus, say, ergonomics or features. The Hilti saw is technically a 12-inch power cutter and had the shallowest depth of cut, but clearly punched well above its weight in this test with a great feature set, low weight, and impressive runtime and speed scores. Husqvarna K1 Pace Power Cutter was a team favorite and a clear winner with top scores in 5 out of 9 categories. It's lightweight, well-balanced cutoff saw, great runtime, great functionality, really nice line of sight. The Makita was heavy and powerful. It was the only saw that you never had to let up on when you were cutting and actually could lean into the cut. It has an excellent feature set and ergonomics, generous depth of cut, and was the second fastest in our metal cutting test. The Milwaukee MX, it's a Gen 2 saw, so they've improved it already, and was a speed demon when cutting metal, averaging almost 3 seconds faster than the next cutter. It too is a powerful cutter and had excellent depth of cut, great price, and good features and ergonomics. The water connection issue hurt the MX saw and kept it from standing alone, probably in second place. All right, so I know you're wondering, best value. The best value cordless concrete cutter was a tie between Hilti and Milwaukee. Best value is typically awarded to the saw that performed well with the lowest or low in price, right? Good value for your buck. The Hilti and Milwaukee were close in score and $506 apart. Regarding performance, the Milwaukee power cutter, it performed slightly better than the Hilti. One tool did well in concrete endurance and the other tool did really well in cutting speed. The Hilti cordless cut-off saw surprised us all in its performance and frankly price. Hilti has historically been at the top of the pricing charts in all of our head-to-heads. The bottom line is both concrete cutters have a good feature set, good ergonomics, excellent charging time, and that's important because that's gonna keep you in the game, cutting in the game, right? So keep that in mind. As far as closing thoughts, the biggest issue with cordless cut-off saws is charging time. It's our opinion that contractors who cut concrete and say use 2 tanks of gas a day or less, they're in the sweet spot to convert to battery power. It's an absolute no-brainer for you. If you're cutting all day or using 5 to 7 tanks of gas, you should stay with a gas cutter or invest in more batteries if you can afford it. Speaking of batteries, the Hilti and Makita both have batteries that are compatible with a wide variety of smaller tools. The Hilti Neuron line and the Makita's 40-volt XGT line. So that could be a factor in purchasing decisions. That, you can mix and match with all your other stuff. Lastly, charge time and power to charge is a huge consideration. Many of these batteries require 45 minutes to charge, and you also need to consider how remote you're working. Do you have access to electricity or an inverter to charge your batteries? Or do you have enough batteries to get through your cuts? So that's something to think about. To close, I just want to mention that we get lots of comments on how we make our final rankings. Half of you are going to agree, half of you don't agree. I don't care. There are dozens of ways to compare tools. Our goal when testing is to achieve repeatable, consistent results. We share all our data with you for the test. We're upfront on how we score, so you can re-rank these tools any way you want and then go buy what you want. If you don't like how we report an item or we rank it, no problem. Remove it from the matrix, re-rank it, make your own score. Hopefully, you'll find that this head-to-head was useful when considering purchasing a larger cordless power cutter, concrete cutter, and when you're comparing them to gas. So guys, please take the time, check out our other head-to-heads that we do here at Toolbox Buzz. We're super proud of our head-to-head testing. We feel we're the best out there, and we feel our street credibility allows us to give you really good, consistent, repeatable results with street credibility. So check them out. We've got dozens of head-to-heads. I'll see you at the next head-to-head. Take care.